Right.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here at our next BYOG party. BYOG, I think you know, but I like to leave no doubt. That stands for Be Your Own Guarantee. I have these because I want to help you be your own guarantee for your health and your life. And got a great BYOG co-host with me today, Jana Danielson. I want to give you a little story about how we connected first. Geez, it was less than a year ago. But we're going to be doing some really cool things, and you'll see I usually wear a button-down shirt and stuff, but I know we're going to be moving, so I got to dress even more comfortably. All right, and hopefully you guys did too. So Jana and Jana, say hi so you show up here.
Hi everyone, can you hear me okay?
All right, excellent. So if you have any questions or comments along the way, you can put them in the chat. But I just wanted to first share like how Jana and I basically connected and really hit it off with our philosophy on health, our philosophy on life, basically. And I can't remember if her team or she reached out to me or I saw her summit that she had going on, I think the end of last year or starting in January. Is called the Medicine of Mindset. I'm like, man, I want to be on that one. So we hooked up there. I talked on hers, and then I had one that I was organizing called the Mindset Matters Summit, which some of you might be familiar with. So I'm like, well, she's definitely gonna have to be on that one because again, we just meshed so well, and she was excellent on that. And this is where this BYOG party came to be, is because my next summit was called the Spine and Posture Health Connection Summit. And, I'm a spinal healthcare specialist. That's what she specializes in as well. And where the light bulb went off, where I'm like, you know what, I think we need to get more from Jana, or I want you to have more from her because, and she loves when I say this because, I had 11 or 12 speakers on the Spine and Posture Summit. And I can analyze what talks were the most frequented. What did people watch the most? And she loves it because hers was by far the most viewed by almost two times. And I was like, well, maybe hers was on longer. Like, no, because everybody had the same amount of time on, like everybody's was live for 24 hours. And then when we had the encore, the replay, all of them were released at the same time. So yes, she's the big winner and she likes being the winner. So yes. And we also had so many great comments of like what she taught, but also like wanting to know more. Like, is there a way that she could even help you like watch you or not even watch you, but take you through some movements. So that's where I was like, all right, let's set this up for a BYOG party. So without talking anymore, well, until a little bit later, Jana, welcome. Thank you for being here. And I know we talked about, we want to create this movement experience for everybody, and I can't wait to get into that. But I'm not sure, are there any slides that you want to start with, or you just want to talk and explain basically how this came about?
Yeah, I'm just going to talk. It's like we're at a party. Let's just visit and kind of mingle like that. Imagine that we're doing that. So hi everybody, Dr. Ryan, thank you so much for having me at this BYOG. When I got the email and Dr. Ryan invited me, I was like, what does that even stand for? Like, bring your own. I didn't know. I was like, there's got to be something fancy, but be your own guarantee. I love it. And here's what is funny, not funny about the fact that this is happening today. First of all, let me just tell you, we've been living in Mexico for about 18 months. We're originally from Canada. I'm back in Canada and we're at a rental. So that's why you see like my Costco toilet paper and my paper towel there. So I tried to make my background as conducive to today as possible, but I'm just trying to make do with my space. But guess what? I woke up this morning and, well, actually, yes, last night, we were sitting on the couch after work, and we had gone to the gym, and I said to my husband, can you just take like my little fascia ball, and can you just really work under my left shoulder blade? I said, I don't know if I just twisted wrong and during the night, I tried to turn over in bed, and I was like, oh, geez. And I've worked in movement for long enough. I used to own a Pilates studio and an integrated health therapies clinic here in Saskatoon, Canada. And I was like, I have ribs out. I just know my body. It doesn't happen that often. And so when I went to see my chiropractor this morning, and, it was the 11th and 12th rib on my left side that were out. And it made me really think about what I was going to talk to you about today, because movement is medicine has so many layers of truth to it. Yet when our body is what I call, when our body has a hiccup, not like a literal hiccup, but like a hiccup, like I had this morning with ribs out, many of us lean into taking movement away, right? That's what we think we should do. Is we have to be super careful. And yes, would I have done well golfing 18 holes this morning? No, probably not. Even just getting my seatbelt on was a bit of a challenge for me. So I want to help you understand that hiccups when it comes to your body are a part of life, right? How you receive them and what you do with them is what's really important. And so I want to talk to you a little bit before we start moving about the spine and the health of the spine dictating the health of the body, which is really what Joseph Pilates, who was one of my, not currently on this earth mentors, talked about when he was creating the form of movement that became known as Pilates, because that's really what was my saving grace when, after my 2-year pain journey with digestive pain, 11 medications, being told that the pain was in my head, I was seeking attention. It really was Pilates that healed me. And so for me, movement does have that literal, it was my medicine. And I shifted my entire career to wellness entrepreneurship and built a successful brick and mortar. And now I have my, my online pieces of my business. So let's learn about the spine first really quickly, and not so much about like the anatomy of the spine. I mean, Dr. Ryan is our expert in that, but understanding that when we have small little bones in our body, those bones are meant for movement. So let's think about that. Think about the bones in our hands, right? The 26 bones in each feet. The spine is small little bones compared to, the long leg bone, the femur that goes from our hip to our knee. Right? The long bones in our arm, those are meant more for stabilizing, for holding. And the spine really has a recipe to it. Our spine should move 5 ways every day. And we're going to go through those, that list. I'm going to talk a little bit about it. We're going to talk a little bit about posture, and then I'm going to get on my mat and we're going to actually, kinesthetically experience this, together, because I think it's really important to understand that just because you had another birthday candle on your birthday cake does not mean that you should start waving the white flag when it comes to lack of energy or, joint pain or back pain. It just means your body's communicating, and you darn well got to learn how to listen to it so that you can communicate back. It's got to be a 2-way, communication experience. All right. So the spine, 7 little vertebrae in our neck, okay, cervical or cervical vertebrae. And I was taught this, like, think about breakfast, lunch, and dinner. At 7 a.m, you eat breakfast. You've got 7 little bones that make up your neck. You've got 12. So you have your lunch at noon. You've got 12 vertebrae that make up your thoracic spine. And then maybe it's a bit of an early dinner, but there's 5 lumbar vertebrae that make up that lower back, that little curvature to your low back. Then we've got the fused bones of the sacrum, but just think of breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Okay. And here's a little bit of, here's a fun fact. My boys are 18, 20, and 22, but when they were younger and I would go on field trips, class trips, we went to the zoo here in Saskatoon, and I learned that an owl has 14 cervical vertebrae. That's why an owl can turn its head so much more than we can. All right. So that's how your spine is made up. And then there's these little jelly donuts in between each bone called an intervertebral disc that really help to absorb forces so that when you maybe trip on something or slip and fall, if our spine was one single bone, one rod, the reality is many of us would end up with that rod broken because of just life, right? So each of those sections, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, have different movement capabilities. They don't all act the same. But as a complete unit, the spine can, and I can't do much toward my left, rotate, okay? It has the ability to side bend or laterally flex. It has the ability to extend, look up at an airplane flying overhead. It has the ability to flex or round forward. And then in the world of Pilates, the fifth spinal movement we talk about is called an inverted spine. And we're going to actually do it today. But simply said, it just means when your tailbone is higher than your heart, gravity gets to work differently on your spinal fluid and the blood around it. And that's important. And we're going to do today just doing a simple bridge. Okay. We're not going to do any legs overhead. I couldn't even do it today, I don't think. In Pilates, we have rollovers and jackknives and things like that. Not doing anything like that. So the movement experience we're doing today is going to be A-okay for everyone, everybody, whether you have a bulge or herniated disc, whether you have rheumatoid arthritis or osteoarthritis or osteoporosis. This is all going to be A-okay. And what I want to help you understand, or I want to challenge a little bit, those of you who might be living with those conditions, we often get told, especially, I'll use the example of osteo. I had someone with osteoporosis come into one of my classes. And in Pilates, we do what's called a baby swan. So it's a little tiny, extension, a little tiny lift with the chest off the mat when you're laying on your tummy. And she said to me, Jana, I can't do extension. No, sorry, I can't. Yeah, no, she said to me, I can't do extension. And I was like, did you get hurt? Did you? And she said, no, I just was at my doctor and I can't do extension anymore. And I was like, okay, well, first of all, I've never heard that. I've heard that extension is A-okay for osteoporosis. It's deep flexion that's the issue. But anyways, so I said to her, how are you going to drink the last sip of coffee out of your cup? And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, if you're like, the action of drinking takes us into extension. Don't you dare look at a bird flying over. If you take your grandkids to fly a kite, don't look up at the sky. And so I want to empower you to know that when your healthcare providers give you such black and white information, that it's okay to ask the question. And the question might just be, help me understand. Help me understand. Because it is impossible to take away a spinal movement. Even today, we're going to do slight flexion. We're going to do extension, the rotation, the side bending, the bridging. We're going to do it all, but your experience is all going to be very different. And we're going to layer in breath to it so that our nervous system knows that these movements are safe. When there is actually an absence of breath, alarm bells known as your sympathetic nervous system start to ring in a really big way. When we hold our breath, it tells our sympathetic nervous system that there's some form of danger around us, and we need to be ready for that. So what the sympathetic nervous system does is it does a few things. It immediately starts sending more blood flow to your extremities, your hands and feet, just in case you got to boot it out of there, right? It takes away your hunger mechanism, because who has time to eat when they're running away from that saber-toothed tiger, right? I'm just going to, I'm sitting like up on my haunches, but I just realized that my feet are going to sleep and I don't want to fall when I go move to my mat. So let me just get some blood flow to my feet. Okay. So that's important to know, is when there's a lack of breath, there is going to be messaging sent to your brain that what you're about to do might not be safe. And so all your little protection mechanisms are going to turn on. So think about in movement, okay? If you're moving a little more gingerly like I am today, I noticed when I went to reach for my seatbelt the 4 times today that I was in my vehicle twice, I was actually holding my breath when I turned to grab my seatbelt because I knew there was going to be some pain and discomfort. Instead, when I noticed that the first time, when I went the second time to grab my seatbelt, I just did this really nice inhale. And it actually gave me some freedom to my rotation. So part of understanding how movement is medicine is understanding how what role, your breath plays in that movement. All right. So that leads me into this idea of what is optimal breathing and how do we make sure that we are getting our, some books say 50 trillion cells, some say 70 trillion cells, somewhere in between 50 and 70 trillion. We have to make sure those cells are getting the oxygen they need. And that happens through diaphragmatic breathing, which we're going to do together when I head over to the mat. Okay. So we're going to learn how to do that. Here's a few things you need to understand from a physiological perspective. When you yawn, okay, when you feel tired, but it's the middle of the day and you're like, why am I yawning? I had a great sleep. It's actually your body's way of telling you it needs oxygen. All right. So think about that. You're at work, maybe you're on a Zoom call and you're like kind of covering your big lion yawn and you're wondering what's going on. When you have a lack of oxygen, especially around your brain, your body's going to ask you for big doses of it. So what happens when you yawn? You open up your mouth and you take in big volumes of oxygen. Okay. So it's not that you're bored with the meeting you're in or with the company you're with, by no means. You can just tell them like, I'm just oxygenating. If someone's like, why are you just yawning and yawning and yawning? You're just oxygenating. All right. So what that actually means is you're in a state of oxygen deprivation and even your brain doesn't have enough. And you might be experiencing things at that point like brain fog or lots of forgetfulness, like, where's my phone? Where are my keys? Did I send that email? Those are like just little indicators that you don't have the environment for being, sharp and clear that you need to be. And so part of the diaphragmatic breathing process is going to start that action. All right. So yawning, don't try and minimize those yawns. Go for it. Make your mouth as big as you possibly can and take in those big gulps of oxygen and understand that it's probably just a little tap on the shoulder from your body to be like, okay, you know what? When I'm done this call, I'm just going to sit for 60 seconds and just do some big, deep diaphragmatic breathing, just 10 to 12 even. And that will start to change the situation that you have in your body. Because when our cells are not properly hydrated, it's really hard to expect our tissues, our organs, our systems to be efficient as well. Hey, Dr. Ryan, what do you do here at these BYOGs for questions? Do we save them? Do we answer as we go? What do you do?
It's up to the host. It's up to you if you want to go along the way. Joe usually has really good questions. And if it fits in with what you're saying, sometimes it's easy with that. And if it's something that you're going to cover, we can, you can say, well, we'll address that in a minute. Perfect.
Okay. I just want to see if I chatted or talked about everything I wanted to, just to kind of frame the breath work, and then I'll get to you, Joe. Yeah, I think I did. When we feel just a sense of sluggishness, of like, my two go-tos are breathing and hydration, right? Breathing and hydration, breathing and hydration, breathing and hydration. That's the first thing that I want you to understand as far as a strategy for how do I boost my oxygen? Or sometimes even thirst can be mistaken as hunger. So you might walk to that pantry midday thinking, why do I don't usually have a snack at this time. It might actually be, a hydration, wait, oh, how did I get on hydration? I was just talking about breathing. Let's go to Joe's question. Then I'm going to talk about hydration of the body, and then we're going to get moving. So Joe, come on off of mute.
Thank you, Jana.
Yeah.
I wanted to contribute to what you were saying about the yawning, right? From like a neurological perspective, it's triggering a connection in the nervous system and waking things up. And it's also kind of forcing the exhale. And from a biochemistry standpoint, it's the exhale that helps us actually put more muscle oxygen into our muscles. So I love how you kind of were putting those things together, but at the same time, like I really want people to understand, like it's the exhale. If you hold the exhale, that will drive more oxygen from our blood into our tissues, not so much necessarily the gasp. Once you kind of notice at the end of your yawn where you're like holding it all out, that when you take it in, it's not so much the inhale as much as it is that you were holding the exhale.
See, and I love that you mentioned that, because it feels so counterintuitive, right? We feel like we got to take in all this oxygen, right? But is it James Nestor that wrote the book? Is it Breath? Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
He wrote Breath, but then it's funny. I mean, Joe, you mentioned that because right here I got Patrick McEwen's book, and he talked a lot about it. I mean, this is like the Bible of breathing there, and how, right, it seems counterintuitive, but that, and even when I was reading that, I'm like, in his first book, The Oxygen Advantage, yes, it's the carbon dioxide. We think it's an evil thing in our body, but that actually leads to more oxygenation, is because we need the carbon dioxide to dissociate the oxygen from the red blood cells and get it into the muscle.
Well, and, going one step further. So, what does all that mean? What Joe and Dr. Ryan were just saying, from like just a really day-to-day impact. James Nestor talks about even weight loss, like, people losing 8 to 10 pounds just from properly exhaling. And I think that, in my breathwork class that I've been doing, that's where my lizard brain freaks. Oh my gosh, she freaks out. Like when I exhale and exhale and exhale, like there's like, we're going to die. We're actually going to die. And no, I'm like, no, you're not going to die. But that's the hardest, most challenging part of the breath sequence for me when I do my own classes, like take class, is on that exhale. So, yeah, for those of you who love, well, whether you flip pages of a book or you're on your e-reader, that is a really great one, because I find that is the way he wrote that book is very accessible. You don't have to, be, a biochemist or anatomist to really understand, what he's talking about in that. And now that we're talking about breath, because I am just so passionate about pelvic floor health. Breathing has a tremendous impact on the pelvic floor. When we hold our breath, think about it. For those of you that live in an area that has seasons and you have icy roads or, the torrential downpour and you're white knuckling, you are squeezing, right? Like you are holding your pelvic floor. The anus is usually, contracting at that point as well. And so when we are not breathing properly, we can just inadvertently, subconsciously be taking a lot of, there could be a lot of tension in that area, which, there's a whole spider web of things that can happen coming out of that. So I just want to make sure that, as we frame this movement as medicine piece, we're understanding the parts of the spine, we're understanding the movements of the spine, we're understanding how much breath contributes to that medicine as movement as medicine. And then I just wanted to touch quickly on hydration. So there's a few things that I've learned lately about hydration as I love talking about this topic, is that not all hydration is created equally, right? Chugging water versus sipping water creates two totally different outcomes. Cold water versus warm water creates two totally different outcomes. Plain water, salted water. And so I don't want to make it complicated. Here's what I want you to understand is that when we take in large amounts of water at one time, it can feel like you got to go pee right away, right? And this is where I have a lot of women will say to me, I have a bladder the size of a walnut. And you don't actually have a bladder the size of a walnut. The fact of the matter is your bladder is probably dehydrated. And, or you may have taught some urge incontinence where maybe the bladder is only halfway full, but because you're, I got to run out for groceries, so I better go to the bathroom before I go, or, before you really have to go, that can exacerbate that part of the brain. But it's important to understand that there are ways to optimize your hydration through sipping versus chugging, through, room temperature versus freezing cold water. And I think it was probably almost 20 years ago now where I read Your Body's Many Cries for Water. And that changed my whole perspective on hydration and understanding that the body uses hydration in a priority system, meaning your brain is the first to get hydrated. And then the tissues of your vital organs is next. And then your muscles, your joints, your fascial tissue, that's the last of the hydration pyramid to be hydrated. So if you're not fully hydrating consistently every day, you may have a hydrated brain. It's not like a raisin, right? You may have a hydrated liver, but you may not have hydrated elbow joints or, fascia that can cause things like plantar fasciitis or, like those kinds of things. So understand that knowing how hydration can be optimized in your body is important because that's going to impact your movement abilities as well. All right. So it's kind of like we have this trifecta. We have, the spine, how it moves. We have oxygenation, and now we have the hydration piece. And that really is like the three parts of the triangle that I like to talk here. So should I check the chat before we get moving? Oh, so is that why? Yeah, Becky, don't get me going on weightlifters. Okay. Because that's a whole other, that's a whole other BYOG, right? So yeah, in a lot of cases, when we're lifting weights, I don't care how much it is, most people will actually hold their breath on the exertion, right? So, you're on the bench and you're trying to get that bar and the last little bit, you're like, no, I got to check this box. This is the 12th rep. I got to go. Or even like it's springtime. You might be doing yard work. You might be doing spring cleaning, right? All those kinds of things. We tend to hold our breath on the exertion phase of movement, which causes a lot of issues, right? So that from a pelvic floor perspective, when you are exerting, you actually want to be drawing the pelvic floor up. Whereas a lot of us, when we exert, it's like we're pooping, we're pushing down. There's a lot of unnecessary intra-abdominal pressure. But yeah, do they scream and yell? I don't know if they scream and yell, but that like exertion of noise is part of the fact that they're probably, they're taking in a lot of tension, a lot of weight, and they're just trying to figure out ways for their body to manage it. So I did work with a CrossFit athlete probably about 6 or 7 years ago. She was in the master's category of CrossFit. And she just believed, and she would do like her double unders for skipping or anything where she was like pulling up. She just knew that she would, wear her black shorts because she would pee literally. And that didn't matter to her. What mattered was the time on the clock and the number of reps that she had done. And in 6 weeks, we actually, through proper breathing, teaching her how to breathe properly and how to access her pelvic floor as part of the entire core structure, we actually share her incontinence went away. She actually felt way stronger because now she had, you guys, our core is a 360-degree structure. The diaphragm is the roof, the pelvic floor is the floor, and the cylinder is made up of the rectus abs, the six pack on the outside, the obliques, and then the transverse abs, right? It's a whole system. And when you think about it, she was using the ceiling and the walls. She had no floor. So when she understood how to access the floor, it increased her core strength tremendously. And she even found that, a lot of she was asking her body to do a lot of extra work with the arms, especially in those hanging exercises, because she wasn't accessing pelvic floor. All right. So that's really important to understand that what we're going to do in 2 minutes is going to start bringing that triangle together. We're not going to drink water while we're doing it, but I hope that you've been hydrating today. All right. So, were there any
One
other
more question?
Yeah.
Deborah was wondering the name of the book that describes where the water goes first, second.
Yeah. So it's Your Body's Many Cries for Water. And the author has a very long last name that starts with a K, I think, that I can never remember, but it's Your Body's Many, or the Body's Many Cries, or Your Body's Many Cries for Water. And it's fascinating. It's fascinating what we do. Oh, great. Look at you, Joe. You're like, yeah, there's the link. There's a lot of things in our body that are dehydrated related that we would not connect the dots naturally. And that book really clearly spells it out. So if you're making a summer reading list, I think that book should be on it. All right. Anything else before we get moving?
I don't think so. I think we would need to get moving. Yeah.
Okay. Let's get moving. Okay. Dr. Ryan, remind me how much time I have for this?
Oh, we probably have, I would say, how long do you usually need? If we do 15 to 20 minutes, is that enough? And then, we leave time for questions or comments? Yeah.
Okay. I have my mat set up back there right in front of my couch, because you're going to see me go from mat to couch, because I'm going to show you how to do these in seated as well. So if you're in between Zoom calls, or even at a stop sign or a stoplight in your car, you can be doing some of this nutritious movement. And I'm a proponent of that. It's Katie Bowman is one of my mentors. Katie, like Katy Perry with a Y. If you guys want to take a peek at her work, she's quite fascinating, but she talks about movement as nutrition, right? You would never sit at the breakfast table and eat a day's worth of nutrition in one sitting. So movement should be something that you are doing, naturally throughout the day when you can do it. I'm going to drop a little nugget that after we've been sitting for an hour, 50% of the blood flow to our legs has decreased. All right. So that's why you kind of feel, I always say, like the Tin Man from the Wizard of Oz after a heavy rain, getting up from maybe a 2-hour meeting, is we have a lack of blood flow supplied to the legs. So just getting up, going for a walk, filling your water bottle, getting a breath of fresh air will negate that 50% decrease in blood flow. And then you get to start again. All right. So that's how important nutritious movement throughout our day is. Now, I would love for you to join me on the mat. I have feeling back in my feet, so I can safely make my way back over to the mat. Okay. So our spine has curves, okay? There's natural curves, so we call it an S curve. It's kind of like a stretched out S curve, but it creates balance in our spine. So for some of us that have had posture that has been less than optimal, when you lay on your mat, if you naturally have quite a large space, like if you can get your whole forearm underneath you, I don't have one right near me, but just like a hand towel or two is a really good habit to get into, so that when you're doing these nutritious movements, when we're laying on our back, you should have most of the back ribs on the mat. Okay. Today, I know for me, my last few ribs are not going to be connected just because of my adjustment. And that's just okay. I should have grabbed a towel, but I didn't. So let's start with some laying diaphragmatic breathing work with a little bit of spinal movement. Okay. We're going to start from the bottom and then work our way all the way up. So, and if you're sitting in your chair, all right, just really try and have your feet on the floor. So you've got an anchor point. We want this to be what we call closed chain, and feel those bony butt bones on your chair, and think about reaching away from those bony butt bones with the top of your head. Okay. So in this position, let's just do a little bit of a check-in.
I'm going to bring my mic a little bit closer to me. It might be in the shot, but that's okay. Just so you can hear me better. Okay. Let's do a little check-in with our body. Turn your focus to your shoulder blades. If you're laying on your mat, how do your shoulder blades feel along your mat? And they might not feel equal. I'm not judging that, but just notice, okay? I want you to notice your tailbone. How does your tailbone feel on your mat? Can you make the tailbone feel connected, yet not forced? Can you make it feel heavy, yet relaxed? I want you to put one hand on your belly button and one hand on this flat bone here, just kind of right on the chest called the sternum. And you're going to imagine you have a painted bullseye on the palm of your belly button hand. Okay, you imagine you have a painted bullseye on the palm of the belly button hand. You're going to inhale through your nose and you're going to fill that bullseye of the belly button hand. And then you're going to exhale out of your mouth and that belly button is going to melt away from the bullseye. And do it again. Inhale. And exhale. And do it again. Inhale. And exhale. Now keep that going. Keep that inhale, exhale going while I layer on some information. As you inhale through your nose, I want you to feel how quiet can you keep your top hand, meaning how little movement can you produce in that top hand, or can you make it not move at all? And then exhale. And do it again. Inhale. Your focus is on the movement of the belly button hand, and exhale. When we breathe this way, we're breathing in 600% more oxygen. So those of you who are a little bit oxygen deprived, you might start feeling a little bit lightheaded. And that is a physiological response to giving your brain the oxygen that it needs. Let's do 6 more breath cycles just like this. Inhale. We're going to start adding some movement on the next breath cycle. All right. If you're good with your hands, just bring them beside your body. You can keep them where they were. Inhale through your nose. And on this exhale, I want you to melt away the space in your low back. So curl your hips back. If you had a cat tail, tuck the cat tail between your legs. So now at the end of your exhale, you cannot get your hands between your back and your mat. And then inhale and return back to creating that natural little curve. Exhale, bring that body back in space and squash that little pocket of air. Do a check and make sure your toes aren't clenching toward the mat. And then inhale and come back. Do it again. Exhale. There should be a little bit of glute or butt activation. You're not squeezing. And this is what I say. And we know what this feels like. Just pause here for a second. We have all been in line somewhere and we've had to fart. And you know that feeling when you're holding in, and we know we shouldn't, but you don't want to let one rip, right? That's what I do not want you to feel right now. Like your blood should be working, but it should not be holding in a fart, clenching. All right. And now inhale, go back to neutral. Let's do 2 more like that. Exhale, bring it back. This is called spinal flexion. Okay. One of the most important nutritious movements we can do for our spine, and bring it all the way back. If you're in your chair, you're just doing these little tucks, right? You can do it in your chair. And here's the thing, gang. Those of you who are in your chair doing this, watch your little Zoom window. As you curl your spine and come back, the height of your body in your Zoom square should not change. Can you maintain the length of your spine while you're tucking? Let's move into that inverted spine position. Now, if you're on your chair, this is going to be, you can't really convert this one. Inhale through your nose like we've learned. Exhale out of your mouth. Melt that low back space away. Press into your feet and continue floating up off the mat. All right. Now, you're going to not go into a really big bridge here. Your ribs, imagine them staying inside of your abdominals. Don't let them pop out. And for me today, this is as high as I'm going to go. Now on the exhale, I want you to visualize your spine like an unclasped pearl necklace. And as you exhale, think of one pearl at a time melting back toward the mat. You're going to come to that position we were just in where you've got no low back curve. And then finally return to that neutral spine, which is our most strong position for our body, is neutral pelvis. Okay. Neutral posture. Inhale through your nose. Exhale, tip your pelvis back, tuck your tailbone, press into both feet as equally as you can, and then just float the hips away from the floor. Take a breath of air in here. Visualize that pearl necklace and bring it all the way back and down. All right. Let's do one more just like that. Inhale through your nose. Exhale. So even like I said, the osteoporosis, the osteopenia, the arthritis situations, this is such, inhale here and melt down. It is such subtle spinal flexion that it's important to strengthen the muscles around this position. Because guess what, you guys, you need to flex your spine when you're putting on socks, tying your shoes, sitting up out of bed. We need to have that ability. All right. So I'm going to get you to roll onto your side. I'm doing this a little gingerly today, and then press yourself up. Okay. So that was 2 of the 5 spinal movements: spinal flexion, and then the inverted spine in the bridge. Okay. That was an inversion. Our tailbone was higher than our heart. And of course we could play up there and do some hip dips and stuff like that to add rotation, but we're going to do rotation on its own now. So come and find a comfortable seated position. If you need to sit up on a cushion, if you've got really tight hips, this might not be possible for you. So you can grab cushions. You can, if you've got a foam roller is great to sit up on. And I want you to move the flesh of your butt out of the way so you can really feel grounded, because when you're sitting now, these butt bones called the ischiotuberosities become essentially your feet. These are your feet in seated position. Now just lean your body weight forward, or maybe find a posture where you might find yourself during the day. It's usually forward, it's usually rounded. And what that's doing is like a DNA helix, it's taking us, and our fascial tissue is actually freezing in this twisting downward manner. So we actually become shorter at the end of our day than we are at the beginning of our day. I want you to bring your body weight back in space to those bony butt bones. And I want you to visualize, or if you're in a chair and you've got a high back chair, can you get the back of your head just gently pressed against the headrest? And if you're pretending like I am, you'll know when you're in the right spot, because all of a sudden, if you poke here, there's going to be a little bit of activation, not lots, but a little bit. That is your core supporting the position of your bones. Okay, let's go back to that schlumpy position and just pause here for a second. Notice how this feels. It feels almost effortless. We're hanging our bones on our muscles, and our muscles don't really have to do much here, except one set of muscles is going to get short and tight, and the other set is long, not really doing much. So that's what you're going to be training. All right. So let's get back into that position again. So find those bony butt bones, take the head back on the invisible headrest, and just lean your body back until you can feel some core activation. This is optimal seated posture. And now we can do our rotation. Imagine I can rotate my spine from this schlumpy position, but I'm not adding a ton of value to it because I'm training a spine that's not optimal. I get my spine to an optimal position. Now I'm going to twist it. We're actually going to add a fun little sniffing breath here. It's going to be like 2 sniffs and then 2 blows. It's just a different way of breathing. Okay. There's not a one size fits all. You're still taking in the same amount of breath, but we're like chopping it in half basically. Your fingertips are going to come to your shoulder blades. And if that's not available to you today, just cross your heart. Okay. If you do have fingertips on shoulder blades, I want you to reach your elbows out to the side and try and create as much space from elbow to elbow, and see if you can find some nice activation of these side muscles called the lats and the serratus. All right. We're going to do 2 sniffs as we rotate. And then 2 exhales as we return back. And you guys, I've got like teeny tiny, so you're probably going to have more rotation than me. Let's go. 2 sniffs. Now think about this. Think about unscrewing the cap off your toothpaste tube. And as you twist, you grow. Here we go. Other side. Okay, pause for a second. I can see some of you in the little Hollywood squares, and I want to point something out to you. The arms are gonna cheat for you. The arms are gonna make your brain think that you are like that owl at the zoo and can rotate all the way around. Watch me for a moment. Here's what some of you were doing. Watch this arm in particular. Okay, so when you bring your arm around the corner, it makes your brain think like you're the best rotator in class, that you have the most range of motion, but actually you're not adding anything but just a bit of an ego boost. I want you to keep the elbows 180 degrees from each other. This and this there should be no movement. All right, so let's try it again. We'll do 2 in each direction. Here we go. Oh, I did one. 2 sniffs. 2 sniffs. Keep your chin in line with your sternum, gang. Some of you are really going lots of rotation in the head. Sniff, sniff, and bring it back. And one more time. Sniff, sniff, and bring it back. Okay, hands down, relax. Let me tell you about rotation. Rotation is super important because it gives our organs the ability to be massaged upon each other. So you're really getting an internal massage, and that's important just for function, just for blood flow, for circulation, for digestion. We got to get those things kind of on top of each other, because during the day, they shouldn't be. During the day, we should have lots of space, right? We want to create moments where we're taking that space away through movement versus just taking space away versus, habits and patterns. So two very different things. Rotation of the spine will also, one moment. My husband just landed in Vancouver, so he's just messaging me. Just on my call. There we go. Okay. So rotation of the spine, when there's a lack of rotation, it also impacts the ability to do your flexion. Okay. So all these are 5 movements, but they don't live in silos. They all support each other. And rotation is really important just for the shape of our body as well. All right. So let's go into side bending. So we've done the flexion. We've done the inversion with tailbone higher than heart. And we just did rotation. Now, there's no special order here, gang. If you're writing this down, you really can do them. I usually start with flexion because it's my way of just communicating to my body, checking in. But after that, it's kind of like whatever order you do them in is A-okay. We're going to go into side bending. And I'm actually going to challenge you a little bit more. You can do it seated, but if you can come and if kneeling is available to you, I want you to kneel for this one, because when we can bear weight in different ways through our body, it really helps the pelvis, okay? So we're gonna bring our arms out to the side this time. We're gonna have longer levers. And if you're kneeling, I want you to keep both knees equally weighted into the floor. There's gonna be no shifting of the weight into one leg or the other. So we're going to take a big inhale, reach these airplane wings out to the side, inhale and start to reach over to the side. And that's all I got today. All right. So just like in rotation, when we're in our side bending, do you see how this arm could come way over? But do you see how my spine doesn't actually move anymore? So here's my side bend for today. And I'm grateful for it. I'm humbled by it, because if we did this yesterday, there would have been more. And then I want to take these top fingers on the exhale, scrape the ceiling to activate your abdominals, and come back to your start position. Other side, inhale over. Exhale, scrape the ceiling with your top fingers and reach, come back to equal or come back to start. Inhale, reach the ceiling, scrape it, scrape it, scrape it. Notice how those obliques turn on when you do that. One more, or we'll do it here, second side. And then I want you to do one more each way. Now, gang, when you start doing these nutritious movements properly, you're going to turn on the heater in your body. Like all of a sudden I'm feeling warm, and that's a good sensation. Come all the way back up and just rest, okay? So again, you can be at work. This can be a 2-minute in between meetings. This, not moving during the day there can't be the excuse while I'm at work, because all this stuff, maybe unless you want to lay on your floor and do your hip raises, there really should be no excuse to get these little nutritious movements in. Now, the final piece of the puzzle is spinal extension. Okay. So if you're sitting in your chair, spinal extension is like you have a jacket with a zipper and you start zipping it from the bottom and you zip it up to the top. Okay. Most people will do this with their extension. They'll hang their bowling ball off of their spine, which creates a lot of discomfort in the low back. Extension is really important to balance out the forwardness of our day. It's also from an energetic and an emotional perspective. It's important. It opens us up. Okay. It makes us a little bit vulnerable or a lot vulnerable, which for some of us, we have these walls built up, these symbolic walls, and a little bit of spinal extension can actually be a beautiful way to start to heal, to let the physicality of that movement of the spine start to open you up a little bit, okay? So if you're in seated, you're gonna inhale and look up toward the sky. And then you're going to exhale and come back and look at your computer screen. So that's literally what we're doing. We're zipping up, and from a side view, I'm extending here, and then I'm returning to neutral. I want to show you what it looks like on the mat. I have to change this. Okay. So on the mat, here's what you're going to do. You're going to lie in prone on your stomach. You're going to bring your hands to what we call goalpost position. So you just want to make sure your shoulders aren't jacked up towards your ears. You're going to find connection into your hands, but this isn't a push-up. So it's not your arms that are bringing you up. It's actually these beautiful paraspinal muscles that are like zippers on either side of our spine that are going to bring it up. And you're going to notice, I'm going to show you the what not to do first. Here's the what not to do. Watch my neck and watch where I'm looking. Okay. All I'm doing is compressing or taking space away from the back of my neck. Watch the subtlety of this. This is what is working to lift my body. So notice this is the top of my range. If my spine was a garden hose, the water would be flowing freely through it, where if my spine was a garden hose, I'd have a kink in it. So not that I want you to do it wrong multiple times, but sometimes doing it slightly incorrectly gives you the baseline to what you do not want to be doing, okay? So the breath is inhale, exhale. Inhale, it's like you're rolling a little marble with your nose. Exhale. Now, keep in mind, these aren't push-ups, so your arms are going to feel the same whether you're here or whether you're here. 2 more times. And your eyes are really looking toward the front edge of your mat, no further than that. And last one. And then anytime you do extension, you always want to come back and just do a little bit of flexion. So just a little bit of rounding forward would be a good idea. And
So we have 5 minutes for questions. That took a little longer than 20. However, I think it's super important that you guys learn the nuances about this, because for so many of us, we are taught that movement has to be big and fast and hard and more. And what I hope you got out of this was that if you're the tortoise and not the hare in that Aesop's fable, but the tortoise won the race, right? The tortoise won because it was so steady. So are there any questions that I can answer in these last 5 minutes for anyone?
I guess I'll kick it off. But yes, I want this to be about everybody else here. And what I want to point out is I'm so happy that you said that, is these are simple. Like, again, one of my core values, simple and consistent, healthy living practices, practice. That's what these BYOG parties are about, are exposing you to these practices, not that you are going to be an expert in it this one time that Jana showed you, or the one time that you tried it. It can be frustrating. Like, even with me, I haven't done these before in this way. I have done the bigger movements, but now the subtlety can sometimes be intimidating. Like, oh, I can't get it, or you get frustrated and then you just stop doing it. Just pick. I mean, I love the extension one. So if everybody did that, and then the rotation and the lateral flexion, and then finding that subtlety of the flexion. And so many people are afraid to flex. Mm-hmm. And I don't want you to be afraid of it, but just know you need to be able to flex. Just like you said, Jana, like putting on your socks, picking up little things. It's that we don't want to be there chronically and prolonged, because, again, that can create a lot of different, not just pain issues, but organ issues and breathing issues and just health issues in general.
Yeah, absolutely. And, just to Marie and Cheryl, you guys had similar questions. So I always go for quality over quantity. And so I do that little practice in the morning. It takes me like less than 5 minutes, because I do like 8 to 10 of each of those. And that's all I do. I just use it as like an energizer in the morning. So that's like a little 5-minute routine right there. You don't need to do 15 or 3 sets of 15 of them by no means.
I'm not sure if anybody else felt it, but like, especially again, that one, and then the lateral flexion, holy cow, just the blood flow and the circulation just going all throughout. Yeah, that warm feeling.
Yeah. And that's what you're looking for, right? If you can understand what blood flow feels like, it's that warm, tingly sensation, then you're totally on the right path. And that's another way of reconnecting with your body as well. There was a question. Yeah, I think you're sending out a replay, Dr. Ryan, right, of this?
Yes, definitely. And, PDF diagrams showing positions. This gets into, again, something that Jana is doing special for the BYOGers, because she has you can tell them about it, these 5 movements in the course that you have.
Yeah. All right. So we have an invitation for you. I created a course called Renew Your Body, Movement is Medicine. And I created this with, it doesn't discriminate between any type of body. It comes with 5 half-hour movement sessions that really start with basics. It's like building your foundation. Okay. And even if you're like, well, I have a foundation, build a new foundation or add to your foundation. Okay. Because we're never too old to be learning new things about our body. In addition to those 5 sessions, there's either 7 or 9 in this, what I call mini educate me sessions. So think of them like little 5 to 7 minute mini webinars around how to optimize your education about your body. All right. So there is one that I dive more into diaphragmatic breathing. There's one like, how do you use a little fascia ball to get rid of a headache versus going to your medicine cabinet to pop that Advil, right? So that's what this course is. It's movement. And then there's these little nuggets of did you knows, which I feel like can really up level our understanding of our body. Because what we want to do is, my whole mission for being on this planet is to help people take information about their body, do something with it actively, because at that point it turns into education, right? Information turns into education. And then the next step is where magic happens, because it becomes a part of who you are. And then you get to share it with other people. And that education then becomes wisdom. And that's how we become wise, curators of beautiful movement. I would love to see Mediclinics with 10% of the people that are waiting in the waiting rooms there, that are there for knee pain or hip pain or migraines or all of these things that, it's not an overnight, and it does take effort and it takes consistency. Yet come up on the other side of that, there's this beautiful structure that was meant to last us until our last breath on this earth. And I just feel like I'm just getting going, right? Like I'm going to have 50 candles on my birthday cake in December. And I feel like my body and my mind and my energy and my spirit is just really starting to get going. So please don't ever think that number, whatever that number is for you, we've been told that it should make a difference in what we do and how we act and what we wear. And it doesn't, it shouldn't. So I loved being here, Dr. Ryan. You've got a great community, and we have 50% off for you today until May 22nd, right?
Right.
So, right. Course is normally $47. It's half price from now until the 22nd. I would love to invite you to take advantage of it so that you can have me basically in your back pocket. I love using the course this way. Don't just do the 5 sessions and be done with it. For 1 week, do the first class. For the next week, do the second class. For the next week, do the third class. And then on the 6th week, do them all one after the other. And your body, I guarantee you, at the end of the 6th week will be completely different than it was on day 1.
And listen, I put the code in there, the link and the code. It's going to be in the replay as well on the page. You'll be able to get it there. Don't worry. I'm sending it out tomorrow. You have plenty of time to get it. And I know there's questions about, do you have these exercises to print off? This video is going to be up. Okay, the 50% offer is going to be gone on, in a few days on Sunday. But you can go back and watch this video. I'm not going to take this video down. So you're welcome to go back and follow along with these exercises as well. Okay. Anything else? So, I don't have a printout of them, but I'm sure that's part of that course, or just follow along with this. Fast forward through me talking and get to the exercises. But I love that you, Jana, presented like why it's important, because these are so subtle movements, and people in the chat box already said, yeah, I can feel the difference. I can do them, but it doesn't hurt. We need a little bit more of the incentive in our brain to say, okay, this actually works, even though I'm not lifting tons of weight or moving, a huge amount. That's how powerful the spine is. So it's get further reinforcements for how amazing the spine is and how it's connected to everything in our body. So yes, this has been so good, so amazing. Make sure everybody look at, again, I'll have the replay up tomorrow. You'll get a link for it. So you'll be able to follow along again. And I know for me, when I was laying down, it was hard for me to see. So you'll be able to go back and keep watching it.
Mm-hmm.
So yes. Any other, if you have another minute, I have time for one more question if somebody has it. If not, man, Jana, I don't know, you haven't been in Canada, haven't moved back to Canada that long, but it seems like your Canadian accent is a little bit more than the last time I talked to you when you were down in Mexico.
In Mexico. You mean my Spanish accent is gone? Oh, yeah.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Never. Yeah, I know it. Well, it's so much. I got out of my practice of my Duolingo app. So yesterday I had to use one of my streak phrases because I was like, how could I forget? It's been like 380 days and I'm back in Canada and I'm already forgetting to practice my Spanish. But this has been amazing, everyone. Please remember, okay, that your body is a masterpiece. And whether you have been frustrated with it, angry at it, disappointed in it, there's something to learn in those moments. Cause I know I was there. I was for years and years, I was very frustrated and disappointed in my body and why it hurt all the time. I had no idea why. And this really, if you can root into your breath, the movement of the spine, dictating the health of your body, not that it's going to be a linear progression. Like, doesn't mean tomorrow's better than today and next week's better than today. It just means that when the ebbs and flows come, you can, like ribs out, you can have what you need to be confident that this isn't a forever thing. And there's always something to be learned in those timeout moments when our body's like, excuse me, we're just going to be over here for a second while you figure things out. And then when you're ready to pay attention to posture or whatever it might be, we'll be over here. So thank you for being a part of this community. Dr. Ryan is an amazing expert and you're in good hands with him. And I'm just so blessed to have been invited in today.
Well, thank you again. That's a perfect note to end on. And thank you everybody else for being here. Keep being BYOG. I'm trying to get a good way to say that, but it's always a great time to BYOG. All right. We'll talk to you next time. I can't wait for our next party. Thanks, Jana.
Bye-bye.